Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I'm No Expert, the podcast about everything and nothing. If you're listening to this on our normal podcast, you won't think anything's weird. But if you're watching it on YouTube, you may have noticed sitting next to me, Ben Hardy is in the house.
What's up, my man?
Not too much. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, this is the second podcast ever that we are recording in the same room.
Yeah, second ever.
So yeah, it's special for that reason.
All the way from Vermont.
Yeah.
I'm in California, in case you're wondering.
Took a train, took a plane, took an automobile.
That's the magic trifecta.
Uh-huh. Leo was my Uber driver. Great guy.
Yeah.
Leo from Brazil.
You guys go way back, huh?
We go way back. Yeah, he's in film. He should probably be helping us out.
That's actually a good point.
With the special effects.
Yeah.
So special podcast because we are in the same room. We're recording it.
Is this a vlog?
You're welcome, everybody. Special for two reasons.
Yeah.
That was one. Number two. So we are not talking about nothing. We are talking about something today. Very important.
That's different.
You just launched a Kickstarter.
We certainly did.
Yeah.
Through the magic of posting this video later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just launched a Kickstarter for the Alpha bamboo pen. So that's pretty sweet. It's been I think a year since my last Kickstarter, so it's good to be back, that's for sure.
So tell us why you chose the Alpha fountain pen as your next Kickstarter.
That's a great question. I chose it because I thought it would be awesome.
Okay. But it wasn't just you, was it?
No, actually, yeah. So there's this thing. What is it? 9 best?
Yeah, 9 best.
9 best. Yeah. So if you're on Instagram, you basically type in your Instagram URL on this website, and it will kick back your 9 most popular images from the last year. And so I think 4 out of the 9 were fountain pen prototypes that I posted. So that's kind of hard to argue with. I was like, all right, I guess the writing's on the wall. We better do this fountain pen.
You got to give people what they want.
Indeed, we do.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to decide on your next project. And now, obviously, the people get to put their money where their mouths are.
Please do. Please do that.
But all right, so it's not just the pen that we're talking about today, although we'll dive into this a little bit more. It's not the only product that we're showing off right now, is it? For those of you watching.
I don't know if anyone's noticed, we got some new 4/7 t-shirts in. Yeah,
we just shot a little video out in the dark. We did it out in the dark because these are glow in the dark.
Yeah, these are not just normal t-shirts, they're glow in the dark t-shirts. But I know you're not impressed yet. I spent months trying to figure out where to get the best glowing t-shirt, and it was a crazy amount of effort, but I actually finally tracked down this company, and they are indeed the best glowing t-shirts I have ever seen. In fact, they might be, too bright.
So how do you find the best anything? You go with whatever NASA uses, right?
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah. And it was NASA, wasn't it like NASA that were using this t-shirt company?
Yeah, it was a year or two ago maybe at Silicon Valley Comic-Con. And I just bought this NASA t-shirt with like the NASA meatball logo on it. It happened to glow in the dark. And it was just crazy bright. And so I realized that if you charged it up well enough, you could basically be your own light source. And I mean, it's so bright that anything in arm's reach gets lit up for quite a while. The glow actually lasts a really long time and is really bright compared to all the other t-shirts I tried, which was, I think I went to 4 or 5 different companies.
I think it's nice to know that NASA is exhausting all their resources on important things. Now that Elon is in charge of getting us to Mars, NASA can focus on really important things like finding the best
awesome
glow-in-the-dark t-shirt.
Well,
all right, but we digress.
Thanks, NASA.
We digress. All right, so back to the pen. Tell me a little bit about this thing.
So this pen is actually based on my original Alpha pen, which I ran a Kickstarter for. I should either remember this or we should have looked it up, but it was quite a few years ago. So these pens have been doing really well. The feedback's been really great. Everybody loves them. So I had this idea for a while that I wanted to make a fountain pen but I sort of didn't have the time to start over. And so I started playing around with the original Alpha pen to see if I could turn it into a fountain pen. And I'm very pleased to say that I found the right components that fit beautifully in this existing form factor, which people really like. And it is now an awesome fountain pen. And so basically, mechanically, the cap and the body are the same. All we had to do was machine a new grip that would accept a fountain pen nib. And it also helps hold the ink cartridge that fits inside. And it's kind of nice how well everything worked out. I was pretty worried that we were going to have to make some kind of major compromise somewhere, that it just wasn't going to work very well, but it works great.
We played around with it a little bit earlier, actually in comparison to an authentic bamboo fountain pen. So Jason in his backyard, and we shot a video, which we'll put a link in the show notes. But Jason cut down a slender piece of dead bamboo, sort of hacked it. Little bit of
hack.
No,
Did you just use the word hack?
Did he hack?
I feel like we should stay away from that.
Okay, sir.
Crafted,
meticulously crafted, carved,
yeah.
And whittled. It was functional. It's perfectly functional.
I was surprised that it more or less worked.
Yeah, and it did require a number of sort of going back to the well, as it were.
Yeah.
But what it reminded me of using that pen, like the sort of authentic bamboo pen, was the intentionality of writing.
Yeah.
When you use a fountain pen, that you have these built-in pauses to be thinking about your next words. And I thought while I was doing this, like, the William Shakespeare's, like these old writers.
I like to call him Bill.
Bill
Shakespeare.
Bill
Yeah.
Shakespeare. This is how they would have written, and there are just these built-in pauses in the writing process where you have to be thinking about like the next word, the next line, like the next rhyme, the meter, and things like that. And I enjoy that, and that's kind of what you're going for here, is invoking that feeling.
Yeah, and the original Alpha pen, and the reason I wanted in the first project to do the 3-piece pen is there is a certain amount of ceremony involved in uncapping the pen and preparing it for writing, and if you choose to, posting it on the back. But there's more effort that goes into that and more thought that goes into that than just like, pulling a Bic out of your pocket and clicking it open. So for me, the fountain pen is really sort of the ultimate extension of that, and adding in this sort of extra layer of history, but also this extra layer of thought and care that goes into the process that you're about to engage in.
Mm-hmm. It's ritual.
Yeah,
absolutely. Think about like a morning meditation or a morning yoga practice. There's ritual. Rolling out the mat, like taking your deep breaths and getting your mind in the right place, and then performing that practice. And it's the same thing. There's a ritual in preparing the pen to perform that practice of writing. So whether it's like journaling, whether you're working on a poem, like a sketch, a design, or just we've talked about the morning routine. Like we talked about that on past podcasts, and part of morning routine for me, and I think for a lot of creatives, even Elon Musk, we talked about journaling, just that brain dump, unlocking that creativity first thing in the morning. Like, I think this is an amazing tool to facilitate that process.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think we have a lot of rituals that maybe we're not totally aware of. And just, as you were talking, I was thinking about like my morning coffee ritual.
Yeah.
That I sort of go through, that gets me ready for the day.
Yeah.
Or even, for when I come into the shop and we open up the roll-up doors and go around and turn on the lights and turn on the compressor and all this stuff, it's telling sort of my brain and body that we're about to do this thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a cool thing about a 3-piece pen in general, but then especially the fountain pen element being added to that, you are preparing to undertake some new task.
Right. In Gladwell, we talk about Gladwell, like priming the pump.
But Malcolm Gladwell presents this idea that certain experiences can sort of prime you for the next task, I guess.
Okay.
We can edit out part of that delay. But yeah, basically, again, it's about preparing your brain and your body to do something. And so you can be primed in a positive way that is going to enable you to do that thing better. You can also be primed in a negative way that will sort of be a distraction and limit your performance, basically.
Interesting. Yeah, I think about athletics and like the gearing up process. So I've been a soccer player my whole life, and I think at this point everything is just sort of it's just instinct, like it's automatic, the putting on of my equipment, but I don't even realize it. But in doing so, I'm priming. I'm like priming my body, priming my mind for this performance, for this competition. And it's no different. Like it's no different across so many disciplines, and creativity being a big one of them. Machining, like I'm sure, is another one. Yeah. Right, getting in that right mind space. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the components you mentioned. The nib. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that. Like how you chose it, why.
Like everything, I'd like to have firsthand experience before I make a decision, and so there's certainly plenty of stuff you can look up on the internet about fountain pen nibs, and fountain pens are sort of an entire universe on their own. But so I did my research and I found out what the top few nibs were going to be, and I bought samples of all of those and I tried them, and so part of it is how well the nib works, part of it is availability and working with that company. So some nibs are just super hard to get. It turns out, and a lot of people actually do use this nib from Bach in Germany, and it's a great nib. They actually answer your emails.
That's a big one. Yeah,
that's a big one if you want to buy anything from somebody. And it also, this particular size nib, this is a 060 if you're a pen nerd.
Nib nerd.
So it's a relatively small nib, but it does fit, beautifully inside the existing cap. So I guess the other thing is, the campaign is about the bamboo fountain pen, but in the future, if you are already an Alpha Pen owner and you want to buy a grip that's compatible with the fountain pen, you'll be able to buy the grip and the nib and actually convert your existing Alpha Pen. So I was actually
that's cool.
Pretty excited about that as well. And one of the things I like in my or like to have in my designs in general,
backwards compatibility.
Is backwards compatibility.
Yeah. No past customer left behind.
We do our best when we can. It doesn't always work out, but in this case, it's a win. So in terms of the ink, because this is also a big thing about fountain pens, is the ink that is used. So this pen actually accepts the Pelikan Edelstein cartridge, which I actually like because it's got quite a lot of volume. There are converters that are smaller than this, but you might as well have as much ink as going to fit in the pen, so that's good. In terms of backwards compatibility, we were limited to only this cartridge, and again, I bought probably a dozen different cartridges from all different manufacturers, and they're all just a little bit wider than this one, and because this is actually originally designed around the Montblanc cartridge, this is the only one that fits inside the body.
Okay.
On the good news side, Pelikan Edelstein is really one of the most well-regarded inks and ink makers out there, and there's a wide range of colors, so I don't think anyone should find that wanting. And they're also readily available, so that's another good thing about it. People are going to ask about a fully compatible pen that'll take any kind of converter or cartridge, and hopefully we'll get there, but in terms of this form factor, the Edelstein is the only one that works.
This is what you got for now. You mentioned volume.
Yeah.
How many, approximately, how many sonnets could Bill write before having to replace it?
Oh, remind me how long a sonnet is.
It depends.
It's been too long.
How many haikus?
I would say a sufficient amount.
1,000. First drafts,
yes.
Not multiple drafts.
I challenge someone to write 1,000 haikus and let us know.
1,000 haikus. The 1,000 haiku challenge from Prometheus Lights.
Hashtag.
How about material options?
Oh, we have a lot of options as usual, and that's sort of my standard material offerings, which are brass, copper, titanium, and electroless nickel-plated aluminum.
Awesome. And the cap?
Oh yeah, so we actually just a few months ago shifted to basically the screw that holds the pocket clip on. Before, I had been using a custom manufactured screw that's made by a fastener company, but we've actually started machining all of these screws in-house and laser engraving it with a logo. And they look pretty sweet, and I'm a lot happier sort of with the overall effect of that.
They look pretty awesome. Let's see, I'm gonna just hold it up there, and we'll probably be able to
zoom in on that.
Ready, nice and steady. There it is, people. That's what you're getting. That's fantastic. Anything else you want to talk about with this pen?
I guess maybe just the last thing is sort of my own practice. In using a pen. So obviously I make pens, and I most of the time use this one, not always, but I've always been a huge fan of the Mont Blanc fine liner, and that's what the Alpha pen was based around before. But when I started using my prototype fountain pen, I find I just actually enjoy the practice of writing more. And so one thing I used to do a lot of, and I have stopped doing, over recent years, is actually writing in a notebook all the time. And this is actually kind of what got me back into writing in a notebook. Partly because of the novelty, but I sort of, like we talked about earlier, I felt more engaged for some reason with writing with a fountain pen, because I don't even exactly know why. I just enjoyed it. It wasn't, again, just sort of a thoughtless act. If I'm going to get out and write, I'm more invested in it. And so now I've actually, I don't usually carry a notebook, but for the last few months, it's all nice and warped.
So many amazing, like, $1 million ideas in there.
If only you could read all of the secrets in here. So I just carry a notebook all the time. And it just never worked very well for me to, like, take out my phone and, like, type in a note with my thumbs, or I tried, like, dictating, and then I would just forget what I was talking about. So, I find getting out the pen is a really good way to get my thoughts down. Place where I know that I have them, and I actually prefer looking back because I can, like, draw pictures and stuff. I like looking back at this better than if I'm just typing text on my phone, which just sort of becomes nothing. But I also find the more I write, the easier it is for me to incorporate that into my thought process. And so I think that was one of the big obstacles too, is, like, whether I'm dictating or typing, the act of that preparation sort of makes me forget what I was thinking about. But again, with the pen, as I'm reaching for it, my brain already knows what's going to happen. And so if I practice that enough, it actually becomes part of my thought process and not an impediment to it.
I think that's pretty powerful when you talk about a tool, like a utensil that facilitates the creative process. And I think creatives, you hear stories, you always hear stories about creatives, a writer getting into writing because of their first typewriter. Like, they remember their first typewriter, and that's where they banged out, like, their first stories or their first novel, and they credit that tool. And a photographer getting their first camera, like 35 millimeter camera, and that's what got them into it. And there's something about that thing, and that's what you're describing. A tool that gets you back into this creative process is not a hindrance, but actually becomes like a helper and an incentive. I want to.
It's my little helper here.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, can't wait to see how the Kickstarter goes. It is live. We'll put a link in the show notes.
I hope it's going great right now.
I'm sure it is. Get over there, get yourself one of these, and we'll talk to you next time. I'm Ben. I'm no expert.
I'm Jason. I'm no expert. Thanks for joining us again. We'll talk to you next time.